Okay, so I've cleaned the heat treating discoloration off the appearance ends of the knife, and just did that with a 600 grit hand sand. And at this point, this is when I put the logo on, because this is not the last hand sanding the knife is going to get before we put the handles on and blue it. But sometimes when you etch with this process, you get a little discoloration surrounding the logo, and that hand sanding will take that off. The only thing I'm doing differently on this type of etch with this type of finish is I'm not going to move over to the AC current to blacken the inside of the lettering, since we're going to be bluing the knife and it'll get colored at that point. So we're going to hook up our electrodes, and I've put a new piece of felt on our marking pad. So we're just going to go down, hold down for about 3 to 5 seconds, let it cool. And this is removing metal in the shape of the stencil. Goes about 5 thousandths deep. Good sharp logo. Just want to make sure you get the whole stencil area covered. That's why I made the pad this size. And you can see the metal. That's what's coming off the steel. Alright, just going to look and see what I've got. Yeah, we've got a good edge. Now that's a Sharpie line that I put on there to kind of help me position my stencil. So we're done with this. So I'm going to first clean my stencil and then clean this knife off. If you clean this marking solution off your stencils, they'll tend to last a lot longer. Alright, so there's our logo. We've gotten that on the knife, and it looks nice and deep. So now we're going to do one more hand sanding and get this thing ready to finish. Our liner material came in, and let me show you what I've done with that. I went ahead and brightened the steel up around the logo with another going over of 600 wet or dry, and it brightened it up nicely, and I think we have a good sharp etch. And again, we didn't darken the lettering with the AC current, because the bluing will do that. Now I know the letters look dark now, but all that is a loose black oxide left over from the DC etch. And that would scrub out when we do the brass wire brush with lacquer thinner and prep this knife for bluing. That'll all come out of there, and then the bluing will replace it with a good permanent color. So we're going to be moving into that. Now the G10 liner material came in, and this is it, and it's 30 thousandths thick. And G10 and micarta both, when you get them from the factory, they have a very slick finish. So what you need to do is scuff that, especially when you're going to be gluing it either to steel or to itself. And G10 and micarta are essentially the same material. The only difference is the substrate or the matrix that they use. Now this is canvas material. There is a linen material micarta. There's a paper micarta. G10 uses fiberglass fabric as a matrix. But the resins themselves are the same. It's phenolic resin. So I went ahead and laminated using 5-minute epoxy, another phenolic. So when you glue two phenolics together with a phenolic, you almost get an homogeneous result. And this is a really strong bond. Don't ever see that coming off there. So I rough shaped everything. I scuffed these sides. Are going to be attached to the steel. 1, to give good adhesion, and 2, so I can draw on it and leave a mark. So I've done each side, logo side, off side, and we're going to trim all this extra away. And then remember, with this style handle, this edge and this back edge are finished to where they're going to be finally, well, even down to the buff before we attach them to the knife. And then on the knife itself, the areas between my thumbs, I'm going to scuff with 100 grit sandpaper again to allow the epoxy to really take a grip. And I'm getting ready to cut a bunch of pins. And then we'll get this into epoxy in about an hour. And then while it's curing, which is about a 12-hour process, I have a couple other of these knives that are finished, so I can take one of them and move into the leather room and start making Jeremy sheath. He told me he's getting this knife as an early Father's Day present, so yeah, I'm eager to get this off to him in the mail, and we'll see if we can't make that happen in the next couple of days here. But I'll come back when we're getting ready to put the epoxy on everything and make our sandwich, and then we'll be moving into the leather room. Okay, I have everything prepped up. Got a little bit delayed. There was a periodically the utility sends people around to put a sensor on the ground around your gas lines, and he detected a leak in our service line. So it's between the shut off out in the street and our gas meter, so it's the gas company's deal. But I spent some time out there talking to him. So they shut the gas off until tomorrow when they get a crew out here to fix that. I was going to make beef and barley soup tonight, but now we're without gas. I don't feel like cooking it on the green egg, so it's pizza tonight. It was a warm day though, so it shouldn't get too cold. So here we go. Got everything prepped, cleaned. Got these scuffed and cleaned. My pins are ready. So we're going to get this thing into epoxy. Now these little detailed areas where the handle is going to meet the steel, I went ahead and put 3 coats of bluing on that, so I could do a proper steel wool buff on that when I was finished. It's just easier to me, and I get a better finish, I think. So it's something a little bit new, but I think it's going to pay off. So I pre-blued those little hard to get to areas. There we are. And get another one started. I'm just glad that gas leak was on their line and not past my meter to where we would have to pay for the gas and the repair. I'm going to go with some lacquer thinner, get the excess cleaned up, and we'll be back when this is cured and it's time to start finishing it. Okay, we're out of epoxy, and I went ahead and started roughing the handle down with a 50 grit belt, and we're at the point now, like we are at any point of the build, where we step off this rough belt and we get into an 80. And then we'll go around 220 and get that finished up, and all the way up to 600 grit. And we'll be getting this thing finished up real soon. But it's looking nice. And once we get this fine sanded, this green micarta will darken up somewhat. But I really like the green micarta on this blued finish. And I'm just looking down the road on it a little bit, but I'm liking it. So we're going to get back to it. and I'll give you some shots when it gets closer to completion. Okay, we got it finished. As far as the knife itself, we still have to put a final cutting edge on it, but I won't do that till we get the sheath made. And I know I said earlier that I was going to be using another knife while this one was in epoxy, but with the gas company showing up and all that, I went around and secured some appliances with their shutoffs, so just in case they put test pressure on the line, it won't hurt any of my millivolt valves. So I lost an afternoon yesterday, but we'll get the sheath made here in just a little bit. It's not even daylight yet. But I like how this turned out. Jeremy, I really like this green canvas micarta, and I love the orange liner. It's just a really striking combination. So I'm going to borrow the idea and put this on a few more models, I think. But that is, I'm pleased, and I hope you will be too. We'll come back when we're in the leather room putting some leather pieces together for a home for this knife. But I'm happy with how this one turned out. So we'll see you soon over in the wood/leather shop. Okay, I've taken my pattern for this model knife. I've laid it on this leather, and I just gently went around it with the point of a pencil. I'm just going to take my my cutter, my knife. I'm going to score around and get this cut out. That's it. Okay, we're just doing a little preliminary gluing. We have the hardware installed that we have to install before we close this up. So we're just going to glue the weld in. And we'll put a clamp on it and let it cure, and this holds it just until we stitch it. Alright, I'm going to go stitch this. Okay, so the last thing we have to do before we dye the leather is we're going to just mark the length on this tab and put us a couple grommets in the bottom, and then it's time to apply the leather dye. Okay, so I'm just going to set the tension on this tensioning screw. And it's all finished. We have the grommets in, snaps, all the rivets, and then the tensioning screw is the last thing we put in. And I tightened it up just to demonstrate that the knife will stay in the sheath if you have this set to the correct tension. That way, if you want to use this as a neck knife, and that's what these grommets are for, some people wear this around their neck, under a jacket, just whatever, the knife will stay retained in the sheath. And then if you want a normal belt carry, now it will still come out with some, just pulling. So you really don't have to fuss too much with this. But over the years, as the sheath wears in, you can tighten this even more to keep a secure grip on the knife. But that's it, except for dyeing it black. So we're going to get the dye on here and let it dry, and then we'll come back and show you everything finished. We'll have the sheath buffed up and ready to ship. So we'll see you in just a little while. Okay, we've got it finished. Sheath turned out. It's almost dry. We're gonna let it dry for the rest of the night without the knife in there, so it's nice and dry when I wrap it up and ship it to Jeremy tomorrow. I like the way everything turned out. The knife is sharpened now. It's got a good edge on it. And as I said earlier, I really love the color combo he chose. It's really striking. Kim likes it too. And it's got a great edge. It's not what you would call a razor edge. It's got a good using edge. So this should give you some good service, Jeremy. I'm going to include one of my care and use cards for 01 steel, and it's just common sense stuff. It's 01. We finished it with an oxide, so yes, it will rust if allowed to, but just treat it like you would a good firearm. And I hope this makes a good Father's Day present for you. I really appreciate your patronage and all the kind comments you've made about my videos, and to a fellow Ohioan, I sure appreciate it and enjoy this, Jeremy. So we'll see you guys in the next video I do. But thanks a lot.